Hey, welcome back. I am Eric Arnold, and this is my Politics Barn. And here we're going to have an episode where we cover the recent abortion decision, Dobbs versus Jackson, the Mississippi case, which overturned Roe v. Wade. We're going to cover the recent gun case, I believe it's called Bruen versus New York, something like that, where the may issue law in New York has been challenged and overturned. The state of New York now shall issue concealed carry permits, and they can no longer deny a permit. They can no longer tell a person, no, you don't have a good reason, so we're not giving you the permit. So those two issues, and then of course I want to talk about, along with the Bruen case, the recent gun safety, whatever you want to call it, bill, gun control bill, which is, has it passed now? Is it done? Has the president signed it? It's all but done, let's put it that way. So certainly that goes along with the Bruen case. I don't know the microphone's working. We're kind of in between here, technically speaking, where our equipment that we've relied on for almost 2 years is starting to fade on us. And I just haven't been able to pinpoint the cause of the issue yet and get replacement parts. So I'm just going to try to get a little closer to the camera so I can talk louder so you can hear me, and that's just how we're going to handle it. And if the microphone is working, well, it's probably going to blast you through your back wall of your room. But I don't think it is. So we're just going to try to amp up the volume in my lungs, and that's how we're going to do it. All right, well, let's get to it here. So Dobbs, we'll do that first. Abortion, this is, for some people, this is their issue. It's a radioactive issue for some people. Some of us, for me, certainly not my top issue. Not even in the top 3. I doubt it's in my top 5. It's just, and frankly, let's be clear, for most people in this election cycle, this is not their top issue or even in the top 3. Don't get it twisted. Don't let the media lie to you. It's not a top issue. Like, for example, a person sitting in a retirement home, do they care that abortion is on the table, whether or not they can have one? They're not getting one. It's maybe if you're of childbearing age, this may affect you, and it may be an issue for you, but generally speaking, inflation and the poor state of our economy, that far and away is the number one issue for people in America right now. But nevertheless, let's talk about the abortion issue here. So, Dobbs overruled Roe v. Wade, 6-3. I haven't seen any analysis yet as to the decision that was issued, in the last 48 hours, compared to the draft decision that was leaked, 2 months ago. I don't know. I think that would be interesting to find out, since, this is a unique circumstance. Stuff does not leak, in case you just crawled out from under a rock. The decision was leaked in early May as to, hey, this is what somebody, Judge Alito, is authoring as to the decision on this radioactive abortion case. That never happens. So it would be interesting just to see the draft decision compared to what the actual decision says on what, if anything, was added or taken out. Now, I just haven't seen that analysis yet, and I don't care enough to do it myself and read both copies and try to figure it out. So, I'm going to guess probably what has come out is pretty much the leaked draft. The draft that was leaked out is pretty much what we have here. That's my guess. 6-3 with Roberts, I have no core Chief Justice throwing in with the majority. I read that in two ways. I read that in that he thinks that this is the right side of history to be on, and that's where he wanted to be. He wanted to give this decision a little more weight rather than it being a 5-4 decision, so he threw in with the majority. I also think he did that because of the leak. I actually think he is upset about the leak. I don't buy that he did the leak or that sort of thing. I don't think he's exactly trying too hard to figure out who did the leak. I think that would be antithetical to what I would view Roberts as. In other words, Roberts is all about the integrity of the Supreme Court, and if he somehow catches the leaker and then strings up whoever that is, in other words, a clerk of one of the left-wing judges or one of the right-wing judges, then I would say that would hurt the integrity of the court more. Probably it's best in his mind, just let the thing go. Just forget about it. It's done. Let's not have it happen again. Let's worry about that if it happens, cross that bridge when we come to it. But let's just leave it alone, and I think that's what he's doing. But by coming in with the majority, I think that signals all the crazy people out there that are trying to assassinate justices, hey, killing one of us isn't going to matter. It wasn't that close. It was 6-3, not 5-4. You can't flip the whole court by one bullet. So you just gotta sit down and take your medicine. You gotta win the next election. You can't circumvent the electoral process. So I think that's what he's doing. All right, so basically throws Roe v. Wade in the trash can. What was Roe v. Wade? Well, that was the court case from 1973 that established that, and I'm a layman, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert, certainly not on abortion, but this is just basically what I've read, and I'm trying to regurgitate it to you in some kind of intelligible fashion. Roe v. Wade established the right to have an abortion basically in all 50 states. In other words, you have a federal right to kill your kid. If you want to kill your unborn baby in the state of Oklahoma, where everybody in that state doesn't want that to happen, well, by God, you have the right to do it. And so that's the way it's been for the last 50 years. And people that are against abortion, pro-life people, if you will, well, they've been trying for 50 years to get this thing over. This is their first step to getting outlaw abortion, totally. In other words, we can't outlaw abortion because we got this goddamn court case. We cannot get around this court case. We have to get this thing overturned. That's the first step. So it's been 50 years and now they've finally done it. They finally have done it. There is no longer a federal right, if you will, to get an abortion. It's all up to each individual state. Each state will make their own decisions with respect to, is it legal to kill your baby in this state? You can still kill your baby in this state, but there are restrictions on when you can kill it? That sort of thing. So some states, and I'm going to guess I'm, again, layperson here, so I think that allows me to speak in generalities. I'm going to say about half the states have pretty draconian restrictions, or it's just simply outlawed it. I think I saw one, for example, where it's just outlawed is Missouri. I think Oklahoma, straight outlawed. I know here in Pennsylvania, legal, no restrictions. The legislature has not passed and the governor has not signed any kind of restrictions here in Pennsylvania. So each state now becomes its own battleground. This issue, when politicians would talk about it, was mostly lip service. In other words, yes, I am pro-life, and I believe that birth begins at conception, and et cetera, et cetera. But it didn't really matter because You had Roe v. Wade to, well, of course, we can't actually implement the law that I'm talking about, which outlaws abortion, because Roe v. Wade. And so I can't actually follow through and pass any kind of law that's going to outlaw abortion because Roe v. Wade. Well, Roe v. Wade's gone. So now each state legislature and the governor, if they can agree, can either protect abortion or it can outlaw abortion or put restrictions on the abortion. So, needless to say, the Democrats are beyond themselves, beside themselves with rage over this issue. Because there's nothing Democrats like better than to kill babies. That is one of their core tenets, basically. From what I've seen, it's unanimous. And you can put this in the comment section if you want, if I've missed somebody. But is there a pro-life Democrat out there? Because I haven't seen one. I haven't seen one at all. In other words, all the Democrat politicians I've seen taken to the microphones are basically, this is an outrage, we demand unlimited abortion upon a demand, no restrictions. So I don't know if there are any pro-life Democrats out there. I mean, the one last guy I could think of that was a Democrat that was pro-life was famously former governor of Pennsylvania, Bob Casey. Now his son, of course, who, half the man of the father, he's the current sitting senator here in Pennsylvania. He certainly doesn't share his father's views on life. In fact, it's opposite. So, I don't know there are any Democrats that are pro-life. It's just, now I'm sure you're going to find a few Republicans that are pro-choice, that don't, that basically are in favor of no restrictions as far as abortion goes. Democrats, I think it's monolithic. They all are pro-choice, pro-kill the baby. If you so feel that's necessary, that's the way to do it. Now, how do I feel? I mean, if it isn't obvious the way I'm speaking, the way I feel about this decision, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. The more I think about it, again, not an issue that's at the top of my agenda as to what's wrong with this country and what we need to do to fix it, and et cetera, but I view abortion, more I think about it, this is coming down like slavery, frankly. Slavery was an issue in this country for 300 years, and initially, it really wasn't that big of a deal. You had a class of people that the ruling people, if you will, just viewed as subhumans. They didn't have any rights. We didn't care about them. They couldn't vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that went on for probably, I'm going to say roughly 300 years. In other words, from the mid-1600s till, say, the mid-1860s, that's when they were, quote, officially freed. And then I'm going to say roughly 100 years later, around the Martin Luther King time, that's when they were mostly made equal in all places via the law. And in some places, of course, they're still not equal to some people, and you're never going to fix that. Some people are just racists, and that goes both ways, of course. But I'm going to say roughly 300 years it took to rid this country of inequality and slavery. Well, here you got abortion, and I see it similarly in that you got a class of people, these embryonic humans, they have no rights. We've treated them more or less as subhumans. They don't count. They can't vote. They can't take care of themselves. There's a little difference between my two examples, of course. But they have no rights. They've never had any rights. And I think at some point, it's going to be just like the slavery issue. There's a right answer to this, and there's a wrong answer to this. And the wrong answer is, hey, I think it's okay to kill my baby anytime I feel like it. For example, and again, back to my 300-year time frame on slavery, I figure what? Abortion started, I guess I'm going to just throw this number up there. 1900. We'll start the clock then. So 1900, abortion an issue. There's abortion. We don't like it, but no one's stopping it, and nobody's really that bent out of shape about it. In fact, in the late or early 70s, we had a court case that legalized it throughout the country. So now, finally, here in 2022, we throw that court case out and say, all right, that's it. Now, each state can outlaw abortion if they so choose. Well, I think that where this clock ends is about here, 2200. That's 300 years. You really think that people in the year 2200 are going to, if someone gets pregnant, are going to say, yeah, if you want to terminate that pregnancy, we're all cool with that. That's okay. I don't think that's the way it's going to be viewed in the year 2200 at all. I think those embryonic humans, you're probably going to be presented with a number of choices, which are maybe a little bit beyond today's medicine, but they'll probably be able to, you don't want the child, they'll probably be able to take the embryonic human out of you and plant it in another woman who does want it. Maybe they'll take it out of you and be able to plant it in a machine of some type that will allow the kid to grow into a full-term baby. But what I don't think will be an acceptable option is, all right, well, let's just, we'll pull it out of you and we'll just flush it. We'll just get rid of it because nobody wants it. I don't think that's going to happen in the year 2200. Now, if you want to make your population control argument here, your Soylent Green argument that the world is going to be overpopulated and yes, we will be 86ing these babies because we have no resources for them, we have no room for them, I disagree. I don't think that planet Earth is going to be maxed out in just 200 years. I think the human race is always going to be able to innovate and stay ahead of its own needs. In other words, if by some miracle, or if somehow the human race uses up all the resources here on Earth, we'll go colonize another planet. We'll do something. We'll find a way to do things more efficiently so we can use our resources more efficiently here on Earth. I don't think in the year 2200 we're going to be saying, well, we just don't have room for this kid. I mean, that's like Thanos, for Christ's sake. Hey, we don't have enough resources. I've got a good idea. I'll snap my fingers and kill half of everybody. That's kind of harsh. It's also kind of stupid. I just don't think that we're going to reach that point. So that's the way I see it. I think people in the year 2200 are going to look back, just like we look back now, to the Civil War era and say, who were these people that thought it was a good idea to keep black people in chains? Who thought that was a good idea? And you look at these people and they're educated people. They're not all freaking troglodytes and cavemen. Some of these people were well-educated, cream of the crop type people for their day and age. And I think the exact same thing's going to happen in 2200 when they look back to today. And they're going to say, well, there's a former president of the United States, Barack Obama. He's all for killing babies. Speaker of the House, current president of the United States. And you can go right down the line of the cream of the Democrat Party who's all in favor of killing children. Like I said, I think that this issue, there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. I don't know that you can legislate the wrong answer. In other words, if someone's bound and determined to kill their baby, then by God, it's hard to stop them. And I don't think the country is at that stage yet. In other words, there's way too many people that are comfortable with just saying, hey, I'm okay with 86 in that kid. It doesn't count. It's not real. It doesn't matter. It can't take care of itself. But I think that attitude will change. I think gradually as the years go on, and it's not going to happen, as they say here, 200 years roughly speaking, 178 to be exact in my example, I think that attitudes will gradually change. And you're not going to get rid of abortion, but I do think it will become exceedingly rare as the years go on and society's attitudes change towards it. I think that it will simply become more accepted to either carry the kid to term and put the kid up for adoption or just keep it rather than to kill it. I just think that is going to become more and more popular as opposed to, hey, yeah, it's your right to kill the kid. I hear the argument, of course, the my body, my choice argument. And I got to tell you, as a libertarian, it resonates with me a little bit, but, I'd have more sympathy for that argument if pretty much the exact same people weren't telling me that you got to wear a mask, you got to take that vaccination shot. You don't want to? We don't care. It's not your choice, it's our choice. It's like, well, wait a minute, I thought it was my body, my choice. No, not in this case. So, there, I'm kind of like, well, okay, now I'm not really with you because you're not consistent. So I guess I'm not consistent, but on the other hand, I do think we're talking apples and oranges a little bit here. In other words, if I don't wear this mask, the chance of someone dying is about zero. Let's face it, it's about zero. Whereas, if you kill that kid, the chances of somebody getting killed are 100%. That kid is dead. That embryonic human is dead. So, there is definitely somebody who's going to get killed in an abortion. Now, I know everyone says, well, they don't count. I think they do count. I absolutely think they do count. At some point, those embryonic humans have rights. And I think society is going to start to recognize these rights. I mean, hell, we've already started to recognize these rights in some fashion. I mean, in other words, if I murder a pregnant woman, doesn't the law throw an extra charge on top of me because she was pregnant? I'm pretty sure that's in the law in most states. So some numbers I've dug out of the internet here just to give us some frame of reference. The CDC says that 18 women in the United States die in childbirth per 100,000. Is that number accurate? Who the hell knows? But for fun, let's just use it. There's roughly reported 675,000 abortions a year in the United States. Again, these are rough numbers. Now, apparently what happens is these numbers are reported, and I don't even know who they're reported to, but some states don't report them. And I imagine there are other states that have incomplete data calculations. So California, a state that does not report. So that's a huge state. For purposes of our discussion, we will say that California is part of the United States. So I figured the total number is 900,000, roughly speaking, of abortions per year. Now, the number of people, or I should say pregnancies caused by, say, rape, incest, tiny. The word I want I cannot pronounce. Infinitesimal. Is that how you pronounce it? It's not even worth mentioning. I mean, it's in the single digits, double digits. It's like 10. It's so. However, most of these pregnancies are terminated in the first trimester. Maybe to stretch it a little bit, the first half of the pregnancy, certainly. The first trimester or the first 4 months. So that's 810 of the 900,000 pregnancies are not these late term things. It's an early termination. Now, depending on which of these laws that we're looking at in all these various states that want to get involved in this, some of that's all legal. In other words, this Jackson-Dobbs case dealt with a law in Mississippi where abortion would be totally ethical and legal up to 15 weeks. Well, most abortions in America meet that definition. So, so there's that. That still leaves 10%, roughly speaking. Again, big number, I think for the most part, our numbers are in the ballpark. They may not be exact, but so that's roughly, let's say, 90,000 late-term abortions that occur every year in this country. There's that. So, how will this law affect what goes on right now? Well, I figure probably of the 900,000 that take place now with the federal protection of all the various abortion clinics in all the various states, including a lot in states that are going to close those clinics, I figure some of these abortions are going to go to term. That some of these women are simply going to go, oh, all right, I'll have the kid. I just have the damn kid. Maybe these women don't have the access to a neighboring abortion-friendly state. Maybe they were on the fence about what to do, and now maybe there's a stigma, or maybe it's just too hard. It's just like, screw it. I'll just have the kid. I can't afford to go to Timbuktu to get an abortion. I'm going to say 2/3 are going to find a way to kill the kid. In other words, they're hardcore. In other words, this law ain't going to change their behavior at all. So I'm going to throw out 1/3 are going to change their behavior and have the kid. So that's roughly 300,000 new births next year that would not have happened last year. What do you think of that? I don't know. Now, back to the CDC number of 18 women dying per 100,000 in childbirth. So I figured that would be an extra 54 dead women who going through childbirth where they would not have normally. So 54 are going to die. So I don't know. Does that justify the language that's being thrown around? Women's health is now at risk. More women are going to die. I guess that's true. I think the statistics will bear that out. I don't think that there's probably a tiny, tiny number, maybe like 1 per 100,000, and I'm guessing, of women that die during an abortion procedure. I think it is almost certainly more dangerous to have a child born than have an abortion. But again, we're talking tiny percentages here, 18 per 100,000. So, yeah, is there a bigger chance? Yeah, but it's like having 5 lottery tickets instead of 1. Are your chances of winning good? Of course not. Of course not. Are you going to win? No, of course not. The odds are way against it. 54 will win that death lottery and they will die. So, I guess technically speaking, when they run around and say, women's health is at risk, so more women will die, I guess that's true. But then you have this, 300,000 more people will be born. These are real things, real people who will do real things, have real lives. Maybe one of these people will marry your son or daughter. Maybe one of these people is going to discover the cure for cancer. Maybe one of these people is going to discover space travel. These are real people. I think there's something to be said for that. And then, of course, the sheer numbers there. Okay, we crossed off 54 women, and that's a tragedy. But then we have 300,000 new lives. 300,000. I also think that this number, again, as we go further towards the future, this number will drop. I don't see any way other than as medicine improves that number. I just think common sense tells us that number will eventually start to drop and even become smaller. So, to me, I guess it's basically, do you think these 300,000 babies that are going to be born in this next year that would not have been born otherwise, do you think that has any value? Do you think it matters? I think it matters. I think it has a hell of a lot of value. And that's why I think this is a good decision, an absolutely good decision. One other thing I noticed about the hardcore left, which to me basically means all Democrats, I looked this up. I didn't even know what this was. There's something called a crisis pregnancy center. And I noticed that in the news it mentioned that, well, there are attacks that are taking place at these crisis pregnancy centers, that they're being firebombed and graffiti and threats and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, okay. And, again, abortion not my top issue, so I just one kind of went over my head. So I looked it up. A crisis I wanted to hear, okay, well, let's hear what the Democrats have to say about what this crisis pregnancy center is and why are you guys firebombing these places. So I went to Wikipedia. Did you get the joke? I wanted to hear what the Democrats had to say, so I went to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is written by Democrats. You know that, right? Okay. Well, apparently they are Christian centers that their core purpose is to talk pregnant women into having the kid. That they'll offer them some other services and help and whatnot, but it's all geared towards convincing them not to get the kid aborted. That they want, hey, we're trying to sell you on the idea of not killing your baby. You're going to regret it, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not 10 years from now, but at some point you are going to regret it. We're telling you. So don't kill your kid. That's what they're trying to sell to the pregnant woman. I don't understand what the left's issue with that is. But then again, you're not really pro-choice, are they? In other words, we're pro-choice as long as you decide to kill the kid. I don't understand. I mean, it seems to me if you're pro-choice, you'd be okay with the opposite choice. And so they're, okay, I'll have the baby. Well, then why are you running around trying to shut these places down? I hear you. They all have some kind of phony baloney reasoning about, they're liars and they misrepresent statistics and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I think their purpose is pretty clear. They're there to try to convince that on the fence potential mother not to kill her baby. And so to me, that seems like a legitimate choice if that's what you're telling yourselves that you are. We're pro-choice. Oh, are you? Or are you really pro-death? I don't get why, now of course the obvious answer is that the authoritarian left has no use for any counter-arguments. And we've seen that again and again and again as any kind of free speech in this country is rapidly becoming censored by the totalitarian left. So they don't want any kind of counter-argument. They certainly don't want these people competing for the attention of these mothers or potential mothers on the fence. So that's why they're attacking these places. They're trying to burn them to the ground. They want them gone. It's embarrassing. I mean, how do you guys justify that? Are you really pro-choice or you just want pro-death? In other words, well, you don't want to, you're not sure about having your baby? Well, we'll help you kill it. We like killing babies. I mean, in a way, that's how it feels. It's like they're not pro-choice. It feels like they're almost just pro-death. Anyway, so I don't think that anything's going to change radically right away. The Democrats think this issue is going to carry them through the midterms. It's not. It's a big issue to a lot of hardcore leftist radicals. Shazam, they weren't going to vote Republican anyway. Will it drive a few of these hardcore leftist radicals to the polls? Well, of course it will, but they were going anyway. I really don't think that perhaps a suburban mom maybe will sit there and go, I don't know. I mean, you know, I like to have that option if, you know, I happen to get pregnant and, you know, I don't want to, you know, lose that option if, you know, I want all options available. You know, it's possible that she could base her vote on that. It's more possible that she's going to say, yeah, I don't know how we're going to afford Jeremy's college because we're paying every last dime we got right now to heat the house and fuel the car. More likely than not, that's how it's going to break down. Hey, check out any poll. They all pretty much say the same thing. Abortion's not that big of an issue. So, I don't know it's going to hurt the Republicans that much. Donald Trump, I think, you know, was it the New York Times ran with that. Oh no, this is terrible. This issue now has come out at a time when the Republicans were going to win, and now we just don't know. I wouldn't worry about it that much. I really wouldn't. Plus, I mean, the Democrats always overplay their hands. They always overplay their hands. They just think that totalitarianism is great and everyone loves it. They don't. They don't. So watching you guys run around and protest, riot, blow shit up, burn stuff down, it just isn't going to help your case, but you're going to do it. We know you're going to do it. So we'll see. I don't, you know, I view this issue as a zero. In other words, politically a net zero. I don't think it's going to hurt the Republicans. I don't think it's going to help the Republicans. Vice versa, the Democrats. All right. I think I've covered that. Guns. Let's talk guns. So the Supreme Court came out and they pretty strongly outlawed these state laws that prevent the issuance or the permitting of guns. In other words, some of these liberal states have all sorts of laws, and even though there's a federal constitutional amendment that says, hey, guns are supposed to be allowed, you're supposed to be able to own a gun, a lot of leftist states, it's just damn near impossible to have one. The government, the state governments, and that's generally a majority of people in these states. It's not like there's just a cabal of Democrat leaders that are doing this. They have the support of the majority of people in these states. They don't like guns. So they don't want anyone to have these guns except special people. So it's very difficult. Obviously, New York, that was, I believe, the state that was sued. I think the specific issue was man wanted to carry a concealed weapon, and New York wouldn't let him. He didn't have a good enough reason. The law in New York, I guess, was you've got to present a compelling reason to the state why you need a concealed weapon. And undoubtedly, that's adjudicated arbitrarily and unfairly, capriciously. I'm sure that, you know, and if I'm a Democrat mayor of a town, I get to have a gun. But if I'm just Joe Blow, no, I don't get to have a gun. Well, the Supreme Court struck that down, and I think it was 6-3. So, obviously, I think that's good. I think it's important that every chance the court has to reaffirm Second Amendment rights, they should do it, because it's, to me, just as clear as day in the Constitution that the founders wanted the populace to have access to weaponry, that they did not want a disarmed populace, that weapons in the hands of the populace is one of the checks and balances that the founders envisioned to keep the government from getting too powerful. I think that's what it's there for. So every chance that the court has to reaffirm that, that's a good thing. Now, I know I stood here and I told you people, all right, these gun control bills that are in the Congress, I wouldn't worry about them too much. Well, obviously one got out and one's going to become law. So should we be upset? Should we picket? Should we riot? Should we not vote for our Republican elected representatives and senators in this next cycle? I would say no. In other words, vote for them, for God's sakes. Let's not cut our noses off to spite our faces. Let's remember what's at stake here. Oh my God, we're 1 or 2 elections away from complete totalitarianism. We're that close from losing it all. And if we don't stop these people now, there's no stopping them. So we have to take back control of at least one of these houses of Congress to slow these SOBs down. Now, was it a good thing that they passed this gun control bill? Of course not. Of course not. But once again, I am one of the only people in America that thinks that Mitch McConnell is doing a good job. And you're going to say, well, you're crazy. You better justify that. I think Kurt Schlichter, and he's a guy that writes on the internet. I think he's on at Town Hall. I like him. He's a good writer. He calls him the murder turtle. And I have no idea what that means. But I think he has it under control. In other words, as much as I want to tell you people that gun control is not a popular issue, it probably, this kind of soft, no confiscation type of thing is probably more popular than unpopular. I said, watch what these guys do. That tells you how popular an issue is. In other words, the Democrats, while they're running around with torches and pitchforks in their hands right now, screaming to the heavens, are they going to legalize abortion via law in all 50 states? They have the power to do it. They have the House. They have a majority with Kamala Harris breaking the tie in the Senate. They have the presidency. They could simply do it. There's no stopping them. They could simply do it. But they're not going to. Why? Because it's not that popular. It's not that popular. If 90% of Americans wanted to be able to kill their babies with no restrictions, anytime, anywhere, no questions asked, do you really think that some of these blocks in the Senate, like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, is that how you pronounce it? Do you think they would really stand in the way? Of course not. Not only would they not stand in the way, you'd get another 30 Republican senators who would sign on to it too. It'd be a landslide. But it's not. 90% of Americans are not in favor of killing their babies. So that's how you tell whether an issue is popular or not, is what does the Congress do? So, I think Mitch McConnell just let a little pressure out of the balloon there and said, all right, let's give some protection to our moderate Republican members. Remember, he's got to keep the whole caucus pulling in the same direction. Why? Well, when it comes to something really important, like getting a Supreme Court justice confirmed, thank you, Pat Toomey, thank you, Lisa Murkowski, thank you, Mitt Romney, thank you to every other rhino that we badmouth up and down, left and right. We just got Roe v. Wade overturned thanks to those, SOB rhinos. So when you want these guys on your team for the really important things, you gotta give them something. You gotta give them some cover to help them get reelected. They're not in Oklahoma. They're not in Alabama. God, so yeah, give these guys a little cover so they have a chance to win in these purple districts. Now, what is going to get out of the House as the final law? Is it the end of the world? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. They're going to throw money at some programs here and there. They're throwing money, I guess, at these red flag laws. That's probably the worst thing they've done. A lot of the blue states have the red laws anyway. So, we're just giving them more money that they could beef up their infrastructure on these red laws, the red flag laws. In other words, no one in Illinois has a gun anyway, except criminals, of course. So, does it really matter that now they're going to have red flag laws so they can take the guns away from crazy people and or Republicans? I don't know it's going to matter that much. The red states aren't going to implement red flag laws. And then we have laws like Bruen, and I think the other one was called Caniglia. That was pretty close on point towards the red flag law. In other words, it was a guy, and I'm going to say Rhode Island, who had his gun taken away by the state. It was not because of a red flag law. It was simply because the state had determined he was a hazard. And they took the gun from him. And he sued the state saying, you should not have taken my gun. I didn't have any due process. You just took it. That's not right. Well, he won. The Supreme Court said he won. 9-0. That means that Sotomayor, the leftist of the left, said that the guy was wronged by the government by them taking his gun without due process. So I think these red flag laws are of questionable legality as it is. And I think there's a good chance when push comes to shove in these blue states where they have these red flag laws, if they ever try to use them en masse to disarm the populace, the courts are going to strike it down. That's sort of what I think is going to happen. I think McConnell knew that. I think he knew the text of the Bruen decision before it came out. So like I said, I'm not upset. It's a little annoying, but again, you gotta give these moderates something if you want them on your team when it matters. You can't just say, hey, our way or the highway, you better get your MAGA hat on or it's too late for you. That's not gonna win in some of these purple districts. You're never gonna have a good majority if that's the way you're gonna do it. So, McConnell, member of the high table, and again, remember, I told you there's a high table, of which McConnell is one of the key members at the high table. John Roberts, McConnell, Chucky Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, or whoever his surrogate is, Ron Klain probably, or probably just Barack Obama. And part of what McConnell has been doing is holding back the tide of authoritarianism. There was no decision that we had to have the shot in order to go to work. That didn't happen for most of us. There has not been a widespread attempt to pack the courts. There hasn't been a widespread attempt for gun confiscation. And no, I don't consider this bill a gun confiscation bill. Now, why is that? Well, I think McConnell is bargaining behind the scenes at the high table. Well, he has to give them something, for Christ's sakes. The Democrats are saying, well, okay, we're all trying to keep AOC from turning this place into a communist hellhole. And believe me, people like Barack Obama don't want this place to be a communist hellhole, because right before they shoot you and me, they're going to shoot him. He's the first one that's going up against the wall. Who did Stalin shoot first? He didn't try to shoot his across-the-border enemies. He shot Trotsky. Well, he stuck him in the ear with, an ice pick. But they always purge the ones closest to him first. So that's where I think the high table is, in that, they're trying to protect against the true radicals. So, anyway, the gun laws I'm not that upset about, at any rate. So, there you have it. Abortion, gun laws. Hey, I think what happened this week, Supreme Court-wise, was very good. Good for America. Going forward, I think now the abortion debate is certainly going to be now right in front and center in each state legislature. So I know this. And I'll close with this. Looking back from 2200 to today, I'll be damned if I want people looking at the state of Pennsylvania saying, wow, you know, they really had no restrictions at all on baby killing there in PA. I guess that was just a bunch of unethical people who like to kill babies. I'll be damned if I want to live in a state like that. So I'm hoping that the state of Pennsylvania gets on the bandwagon and passes some kind of restrictions as far as people killing their babies. You want to kill your baby, go to another state. That's what I'm hoping happens here in PA. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, good. Thanks. Appreciate you being here. I'm Eric Arnold. I believe in free speech. And I'll talk with you all again.